Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Come on in the room. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to episode 20. I can't do it. 29. Man, we're getting up there. With my sipping tea with Stacy T family, I appreciate you. Gonna give everyone time to get in. I see someone's in here. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hey, good afternoon. Hey, Tiffany, how are you doing? Good afternoon to you. How are things? This light is bothering me. I need to move it. We'll see. I had to figure out the whole lighting. I'm like, But how are you doing? How are things over there? Is it warmer over there than it is here? Because it's been in the 70s, and I'm not complaining because this is my type of weather. But it's been interesting to see it this like chilly in August. So, but hopefully you're doing well. It's cold there. It's cold there. Yeah, it's been interesting. I don't know why but people that I know that are in like Texas are, they're like it's still ridiculously hot here. So there's no 68 there. Actually, it might be around that here. I don't know. Let me check. It might be around that 60. Well, it says 65. Wow. Yeah, it's cold. It is 65. Well, it was 65. For some reason, it's not refreshing. But again, those are not temperatures you expect to have in August. That's like, oh, it's 73 here now. It's 73. I, I am. That is going to be my, because I'm trying all these new things, just trying to kind of see what they taste like. Not to say that I'll finish it, because more than likely, I do not know that I will, but we'll see. And actually, when I saw this one, I was kind of like immediately like, this is interesting. This is interesting. You knew it by the color. You could see the color. You immediately knew what it was. So you must have seen it in one of your favorite. You noticed the bottle. You must have seen it in one of your favorite stores, because I do know they have it there. But I got this at the Dollar Tree. So yeah, we're gonna be trying it. We're gonna be trying that today. But today's topic is I'm fine, because when people really have conversations about what's going on with them, and or you ask people how they're doing, response quickly and very readily is I'm fine. Or if you're a church person, I'm blessed and highly favored is a really common a common thing that you hear people say. And what does that even really mean? Right? Are you really fine? Like, are you indeed? I had to change the color because it was making me I didn't like what I was looking like. So you probably noticed the change in the color, but I had to change the light color because I was like, that's not it. That's not it. But yeah, I think that it's important for us to really unpack why we automatically just tell people we're doing fine. And I do get that there's reasoning, that people will they'll try to say, what they want to feel like, like I'm great. Everything's great. But there's potential issue with doing that as well, right? So I am a person about being mindful about what you say, and you know speaking about a certain situation. I you know People have heard me say, hey, don't say that, or be careful, be mindful what you're saying. And I think that there's you need to do that. I do think that that's important. However, as I'm going through this healing journey, I think that one of the things that I have noted is, and it's something that people have said for years to me or around me, um, that, we also have to honor the honesty that people are bringing to a conversation. And for some people, even though you want them to speak positively about the situation that they're in. You also have to be, willing to understand that people are navigating life the best that they can. And when you're trying to ask for grace from people, or you're hoping that people will show you grace, it's important to, um, you know, not, I think the biggest thing is not expecting people to show up in a specific way because it's comfortable for you. And that's sometimes hard. I'm not going to sit here and say that it isn't, but that to me is crucial. You have to make sure that you have given people a runway enough to be themselves, because how do you then help people? How are you then showing up for people if you're expecting them to act like you, show up like you, have the same thoughts that you have? We're not robots. We're all individual people, and we have individual experiences, and sometimes how we present may be uncomfortable. One of the things that I have been navigating, because for me, and it's funny, I'll tell you about something that happened. I think I don't know if I mentioned it last time, to be honest with you. um, but there's been so much of me recognizing as I'm going through this journey that I really didn't think I did, but I did have an expectation that people are going to treat me the same way that I treat them. Like, to me, because it was basic. Like, I wasn't asking for a ton. I wasn't requiring for people to go, out of their way. It wasn't like I was asking for an organ, that type of a situation. But I was literally asking for people to show up in a way that I thought everybody could handle, right? But even in that, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have standards, because I do believe you should have standards. I think the problem sometimes is that we don't always share our standards. We don't always tell people, from like, as they're getting to know us, what our expectations are of basic things like communication, which is basic but not basic at all, right? And we don't share with people, hey, this is what I expect. These are the things that bother me. These are the ways that for me it hurts me or could trigger me. Like, we don't tell people those things. And in fairness, we don't do it because sometimes we're like, is this person even going to be around for me to be given all this information? But even if they're not, I think we need to get in the good practice of setting our boundaries and setting standards, but also communicating them. Don't expect that somebody's going to be able to read your mind and immediately know, oh, I shouldn't do this way, or or it's going to rub this person the wrong way. Everybody's different. Some people, they could care less about how you're speaking to them. If you're cursing at them, if you're, screaming at the top of your lungs, it does not phase them. Right? That's not a hill for them, right? It's not a hill they have to climb. For me, if you're talking to me and you're cursing at me and screaming at the top of your lungs, it's not going to go well. And it's not even that I react in kind, because there have been, there's always going to be someone that can get under your skin in in a very particular way. But more often than not, I will shut down. I will shut down and completely, because the other alternative is not positive. So that's something that I've been noticing about myself through this journey. Is I attached a lot of um I don't even know what word to use for it, but and that's for me something, right? Not knowing what word to use, but I definitely attached a lot of belief that people would treat me exactly how I thought they would in my mind. They can't read my mind, so that's not a fair assessment. So it's been a process, y'all. I am learning. I am having to challenge my way of thinking. I'm having to unlearn behaviors. And what I will say, and I'm not going to get into it yet because I want to. I don't know if I really want to, but I'm going to try this brisk. So this one today is blueberry pomegranate. I had never ever seen this before, but this is what we'll be trying. So let's open it up. Well, let me shake it up first because I don't know. I don't know, but we'll see. And then we're going to try this. Has anybody tried this before? Have you tried this before? I know you're like, it has too much sugar in it. We know. But have you tried it? Okay, so as far as the smell test, this literally tastes like smell taste. I haven't tasted it yet. It smells like a Charms blow pop, like those blue raspberry Charms blow pops. That's literally what it tastes like. Nope, you haven't tried it before. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot of blue. That's a lot. I see why that's $1.75. Yeah, $1. Well, it might have been more than that because Dollar Tree ain't $1 anymore. So, but we will test it out. I'm gonna go into it without having any. Well, I've never tasted it before, so I have no understanding. But it literally smells exactly like a blue raspberry Charms blow pop. So, let's taste it. I'm like trying to. Mm, it literally tastes like they liquefied. I'm not exaggerating. It tastes like they liquefied the Charms blow pop and they put it in this thing. Now, obviously, they didn't do it. I'm not. There's no accusation here. um, but that's literally that's the closest thing that I don't taste. So it's an iced tea, blue dye number 56. I don't taste. The reason why I was like trying to like kind of like pull from my tongue is I was trying to taste the tea part of it. As I'm sitting here, I'm kind of tasting a hint of it. So I can't really detect the pomegranate. Again, obviously I don't know the ratios of how they're doing it. You and Cheryl, Lord have mercy. Yeah, I can't taste the tea portion or part of it. Um, but and I mean, I've had pomegranates, but I don't think I've had pomegranate enough to be able to say, oh yeah, that's the hint of pomegranate. The blueberry, 100%. I taste it, and that's all you smell. Even that though the thing is closed, that's literally all I'm smelling. So brisk, pomegranate, blueberry pomegranate iced tea. Just tried it. It tastes like what it says. It tastes like blueberry. That's the biggest, and maybe that's why they put it first. It's not pomegranate blueberry. Maybe that's why they put that first. Um, this particular bottle has 3 servings, and I'm not even going to tell you what the sugar is. Y'all can look it up. Yeah, it is. There is an aftertaste of tea, but there's also an aftertaste, just in general. Hey, Kathy. There's This will probably fantastic as a slushy. 100%. 100%. Like an iced, like it does taste like also like the blueberry bomb pop things. Is that what we used to call them? It does taste like that too. So this would probably be like wonderful, like on one of those hot days. 5,000 sugar. Hey, girl, I'm not even reading that. Y'all can look it up if y'all want to know how much. Kathy, this is what I tried today. The brisk um, blueberry pomegranate. That's what I tried today. And y'all can see how much I poured out of it and still how much is left. So, yeah. And again, if people like that flavor of the Charms Blow Pop, they're going to literally love that. And I think that even if you like, how back in the day we used to make our own like popsicles. You had that like tray, and you would pour like whatever it was, sugar water or Kool-Aid or whatever it is that we mix and we put it in there. Yeah, this 100% tastes like a blue raspberry blow pop. 100%. But I think that it would be really, really good, like as you give it to kids in those individual type of things. But yeah, I'm tasting hard aftertaste of blue raspberry, just like sitting there. Without a doubt. A snow cone. Yes. I haven't had a snow cone in years. Like really long time now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that would be good too. Because especially when you just drizzle it on the top, so there's like a little bit of it, I think that would be good. But it is a powerful flavor. Like I can't deny that it is 100% powerful, and it tastes like what it says. So if that's your thing, scoop it up. You can get them in lots of locations. I'm sure every grocery store has them. I had never seen this stuff until I started trying to, try a bunch of different types of teas. And I figured specifically in the summer, I was going to try to do more, what do you call it? More iced teas, that type of thing. So it's been interesting. It's been interesting. All right. So getting back to the subject. The subject is I'm fine. And, I get it. But I'm curious how many of you use that as if somebody were to ask you right now how you're doing, what would your response be? Your honest response. I want you to write it in the chat. So basically, you're drinking syrup with water. Tiffany, leave me alone. I tasted the drink. I didn't say I drank the drink, but I did taste it. I swallowed the drink, yes. So I guess you could say I drank it. Yeah. But I think I mean, like I said, popsicle, that's what it is. But I think this would be fantastic as popsicles, or as Cheryl said, a slushy. I think a slushy of that would be because you're expecting that. You're expecting it to have that. And you know full well slushies by the time you get to the bottom have zero taste. I'm like, man, it's where where did the flavor go? It's always at the top. You get to the bottom and it's like just straight up ice. Straight up ice. So if somebody were asking, people said okay. So Tiffany, if somebody asked you how you were doing right now, what is it that you would say? Kathy, same thing for you. If somebody were to ask you how you were doing right now in this moment, what would your response be? Your honest response. I'm okay. Okay. I'm okay. And there's no wrong answer, by the way. There's no wrong answer to this. Tired. I could be better. Mm. Thank you guys for your honest responses because, I think most of you know I've been on TikTok for a bit now and have been doing a lot of the same things I've done with you all, talk about my healing journey and what have you. And one of the things that I actually did on there was this exact subject, I'm fine. And the thing is that's really interesting for those of you who've ever been on what do you say, confused? That's also how you're feeling. That's also a very real thing. um I've been on there, and the interesting thing from navigating that, it's well, obviously it's just like anywhere else, because people are people, and it doesn't matter what kind of space you have them in. You're going to see all types of people in all sorts of situations. Um, but I think the thing that's been very interesting is to watch how people have navigated the space, and also, um, I mean, before I was just a consumer, right? I would go on there to watch stupid videos. Like that's the nature of what I did on there. I'd go on there if I wanted to like just have my mind, not be thinking about anything too deep, and I just wanted to laugh. And I still sometimes will go on there just for that, because life can be hard, and we need to laugh, right? We need to laugh. But being on the other side, where I'm, I guess, a content creator on there, um, and I have live hosting on there. It's been really interesting interacting with people and getting to know some of the same people, because you have some of the same people that will come to your live, because I do it at 1:30 every day, 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, or about around roundabouts that time every day, Monday through Friday. And what has been interesting is seeing people that have been like sent me messages like, thank you so much for whatever you said today. It could be any number of things that I've had a conversation about, because I was really going through a hard time and I didn't really know how to express that. And you made me feel as if I could, right? You gave me the permission to be able to, say what it was that I was managing. And that for me was an honor, right? Because it's always an honor because people can spend their time how they want to, right? That's one of the beautiful things about being an adult. When you're a kid, you get dragged around, but as an adult, you have the ability to, do things that matter to you. And there are a lot of people that are going through a lot of stuff, and a lot of people that are suffering, but also a lot of people that are doing it in silence. And we've all done it. 100% I've done it. And there are lots of reasons why people do it. But let's go back to, how that starts for us. So as a kid, and I've told you guys this before, I'm still an emotional person, so I don't pretend to not be. But as a kid, where you're kind of, I don't want to say ridiculed, but you're made fun of or poked fun at for being a more sensitive type person. And so, calling me waterworks and all the things, I stopped feeling comfortable with sharing kind of what was on my heart or like what I was feeling. Because again, you've already told me that I feel too deeply or I feel too in your face. And so, yeah, I'm not telling you Jack. I'm not going to tell you how I feel. And that was a very real thing for a long time. Um, and I think that, when I look back on Stacy as a kid, that became something that I almost felt, and what by that I mean my ability to kind of shut off from people what I was feeling inside. Now, I wasn't always able to do that because, like I told you guys, I'm an emotional person. But there did come a point in time where I just was like, for lack of better terms, is like damming up my emotions, like literally putting a barrier behind the wall of emotions um, that I was feeling, right? Or the water, if you will, of emotions that I was feeling. And I got really good at it. I got really good at it for the most part. I think there are always people that can kind of sneak beyond any barrier that you have set up. There are some people that you hold close or have such a respect for or regard for. So when they say things to you, it may hit differently. It may hurt more than some random person or somebody that you may have known for a long time, but you don't really care about their opinion. So there's always going to be that. But again, I was really good at that. Um, Even when like, and again, there's always been tests of my ability to do that. So I've told you guys about when that kid called me the N-word in the 5th grade, and obviously I was ready to fight in that moment. I just needed 2 seconds. Man, sometimes it's like, what would I have been able to do in that 2 seconds had I been granted? But no, I wasn't granted that time. But for the most part, when things would happen, um, I may internally be crying or internally be managing feelings of hurt or disappointment, but outwardly, I tried my best not to show that. And I don't know if any of you have ever been in that space. Um, but there are lots of reasons why people do that. And again, for me, it was something as simple as commentary that consisted continually happened for me. And it happened in lots of spaces. It happened at home. It happened at church. Oh, Stacy's always crying, that type of thing. And I don't even necessarily, I'm not going to sit here and say people meant to like do something that they thought was damaging to me. Like, I'm not thinking that that was the case. I think people poke fun at people. But again, if you're already a sensitive person and you're now poking fun at me, well, guess what that does? I internalized it. And it was hard for me to ever figure out how to like turn that off. So for the longest time, I did not outwardly express things that I felt. And what I would notice is that when I did, when I not even try, when it was like too much for me to like hold back, it came out like a flood, like just uncontrollable. And sometimes it was uncontrollable rage. It wasn't even in the same, like if it was before, like I was sad about something and I cried back in the day, then that would have been my release of that. When I was holding it in and I was containing my emotions, I noticed that then when it came out however it was going to come out. Like there was no way for me to be like, okay, I want to cry, so let's cry now. It would be I want to cry then, but you made me hold it back, so now you're gonna get a raging, raving lunatic. And that was very much how I that's how I did manage it. Because if you're not able to talk about your emotions and how you're actually doing, people don't necessarily know that it's a thing for you, right? They just think you're going about your life. Not everybody is outwardly emotional. Not everybody's a crier. I know several people that don't cry very often at all, but that doesn't mean they're not emotional. It just means that's not the outward expression of their emotion. I've also told you all that, for me, one of the things that has been an interesting part of my journey from going from elementary school to middle school was my ability, or I don't know if we would call it my ability, but my advocacy for other people, right? So if when they were suffering, when they were picked on or bullied or treated in a way that I didn't think that they deserved, immediately I had zero problem stepping in because I could feel their emotion, right? I could feel like what they were managing and or trying to manage and maybe not managing all that well, and I felt the need to protect them. It was like instinctual. And frankly, I will say it still is instinctual for me. I don't like people being bullied. I don't like people being picked on. I was always that person that if somebody was eating by themselves, I hated it. I would go over there. And I know sometimes they're like, man, I want to be left alone. What are you doing over here? But in my mind, I was like, nobody wants to eat their lunch alone. And they were probably like, yeah, I actually do. Can you beat it? But I was there already, so I wasn't leaving. Um, so in middle school, I saw a lot of that. But again, I distinctly remember because I've been thinking about it in middle school, I really start to learn how not to have any emotion that I felt people would conceive as weak. And I kept hearing people saying things like, crying is weak and toughen up and you need to be, don't let people see you crying, or, they would always say back in the day, never let them see you sweat. So that's the same mentality that I had to crying. Don't let people see that because they're going to see that you're weak and they're going to take your weakness and run with it. Now, where were they running? And like, where are they going? What were they doing with my weakness? Because I wasn't doing anything at that time, right? But I didn't want to have that feeling that people were making me feel like they had one up on me. And that was so for me, I really worked hard at suppressing emotions. And that continued on because, again, remember, I'm building blocks. Everything you do from that youngest age that you can remember all the way through your life to what it is right now is building blocks. Now, those building blocks could be really good. They could be like the Lincoln logs that are, wood, made out of wood and strong, and they have like the things that are meant to stack on each other. Or they could be like, one of those discount places that gives you some blocks for your kids to use so they can be quiet. But they don't even really like pile on each other or stack on each other well. And unfortunately, as we're building, we don't necessarily know the difference back then, and it often becomes too late because we've just been building how we've been building. We don't know that we should maybe change the pattern, maybe not stack directly on top of it. Maybe we need to crisscross how we're building. We don't know those things, and so we continue and continue on in the same patterns. And then you get to a specific age and you recognize that maybe how you communicate your emotions is non-existent. Right? You recognize that you don't let people in at all. And when you do, you're terrified of what they'll do now with this conceived power. Because remember, I told you that, don't show your weaknesses because you don't want to, you don't want people to take your weakness and that type of a thing and use it against you. And I'm going to tell you, there are some people that will 100% do that. I think we've all met somebody that took our kindness, took our vulnerability, and then they threw it in our face. And that is the worst, well, not the, but one of the worst feelings for us, for you. I'll talk about myself. Because for me, it was so challenging to finally be like, okay, this is how I am, or this is what's going on with me. And then for that person to know that. So first of all, you have to sit with the fact that the person knows what you're saying, right? They know where you feel, definitely. They know an area where you feel vulnerable, and you finally get it off your chest. And for me, I can say for me, when I've been able to do that, because it's not with everybody, and you should not have it be with everybody. Listen closely. It should not be with everyone, right? You need to make sure that you're mindful about who you're sharing what with. But when you finally feel like you've vetted out this person, or you finally just can't take it anymore, and you're like, okay, I'm going to tell this person my truth or what's going on with me. And then later they throw it in your face in an argument, or later they, bring it up in a slide way in a conversation, or they bring it up in a conversation with other people there, right? So now you're feeling, first of all, hurt, angry, ticked off, right? But also disappointed and so deeply hurt that you start to do what? You build another wall. So you've already had a wall. You've been building a foundation, but now you're like, okay, somebody scaled this wall. So we're going to reinforce this sucker. Before I just had bricks. Now we're going to have bricks with cement on the outside and barbed wire on the top for good measure. Like nobody's getting over this fence. Not allowing it anymore because, again, it was an emotional violation. And I don't think we talk about emotional trauma. I mean, we talk about it in terms of things that we have to get over or triggers, but we don't talk about when people violate our emotions as often as we talk about other violations of us. It does compound. So what do you do with that? Right? What do you do with that? So you finally have taken up the measure of saying, okay, I'm going to trust this person. I'm going to tell them what's going on with me. And they violate that. So now not only are you already dealing with the junk and the mess and the crud that you were already dealing with, now on top of that, you have to deal with somebody mismanaging you, not holding in regard something that was private or personal or hard or challenging for you. Now you have to deal with both of those things simultaneously. And I guess the other thing is if they've now told other people or brought other people into the conversation. And let me tell you, folks can be messy. Right? They can be so messy. So not only are they, sharing it with, having the conversation with you and maybe throwing it in your face, they will then want to bring somebody else in. And people will try to make all the reasons, well, I only talked to so-and-so so they could pray for you. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to tell so-and-so, do you think that I could have done that? If I did not tell that person, that might be because I was just sharing it with who I felt comfortable sharing it with. And it's my truth, my conversation to have. But now they've already had it. So it's now out there. And if that person's big mouth Sally, then that junk is everywhere. Right? So there's like now no taking back the trauma that you were already managing and that you finally shared. And now it's being re-traumatized. Or as Cheryl said, compounded. Yeah, and they can share the lies and build on them, but that's on them. It is on them 100%. And I'm glad that you said share the lies because many of you play the telephone game, right? There's one person at the beginning that has the exact phrase that was said, and then it's said to the next person, and so on and so forth in the circle or square or whatever shape that we're utilizing. And then that last person is supposed to say in the same voice what the first person was told. That game never works because people don't listen. Right? They just don't listen. Now, in truth, the phrase is supposed to be something that's silly that people will forget because they're laughing at it. But the reality of it is people will get on the phone, start texting or start calling somebody. Do you know what Cheryl said? Let me tell you, blah, 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 blah. And they take out much of what's true and they add their own thing on. Well, I'm not saying she said that to me, but that's what I would assume. Wouldn't you? So then the next person gets on the phone and they're like, girl, let me tell you what Cheryl said. Da, 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 da. Well, Tiffany told me what Cheryl said, but let me tell you what Tiffany said. But my interpretation is, and you're like, wait a minute, what? And then Tiffany calls Stacy, and then Stacy calls Kathy. By the time it gets back, Cheryl's like, wait a minute. What do you mean they said that I had a green wig? I didn't say that about the color green or a wig. Like, what in the world? Where did this even come from? Playing the game telephone. Yeah, turning, running a. I like that. That is probably a common phrase, but I've never heard it. Running a newsstand. There are unfortunately too many people that run newsstands, but now it's social media, right? So you just get on there and they're like, pray for so and so. They have these cryptic, what they call subliminal messages. I'm just praying for so and so because they're going through it, but I can't tell you who. But y'all know, ask the Lord for him to clear. He ain't gonna be involved in your mess. Absolutely not. Stop that mess. Yeah, that's hilarious. I've never heard running a newsstand, but I'm going to be using that because that is priceless. That is priceless because it's the 100% truth. But again, so now, you're in, for me, you're in this space, you're still young, you're trying to figure out yourself, and you're having all these emotions. And the thing about just even us growing as human beings, like literally our physical body, our physiology, is that we're going to go through things internally that we're already trying to, it like throws our body out of, alignment. It's like going in, driving a car, driving into a pothole or a ditch, and then expecting it to run the same way as it did before. Likelihood, not good. Tell it all. Yeah, because man, it's the truth. It is the truth. You always have that jabber jaws that can't keep, or flapper jaws that can't keep their mouth shut. And so and the unfortunate thing is we don't always have the highest level of discernment, specifically when we're young, right? We don't know, like, it's an adult, it's this person. I see lots of people talk to this person, so maybe I can entrust them too. It's a family member. We're thinking they're going to hold our trust, our secrets, our struggles, whatever it is, right? And it doesn't always have to be something that's bad. It could just be something that you're struggling with. It could be you saying, feeling like, oh man, I don't feel pretty, or I feel like I'm too thin, or I feel like I'm too fat, or whatever it is, right? It could be any manner of thing that seemingly hearing it, okay, that's not like, that a dramatic a thing because so many people go through it, but it's still your thing. And I didn't ask for you to share it. If I wanted to share it, boop, check one. Like, that's what I would do. I would get on the mic and I would tell what I had to tell, but I did not do that. I'm not the one to gossip from A Living Color. Yeah, exactly. Or Pearl from 227. Always on the stoop, knowing everybody's business and sharing everybody's business. That's just the reality of how some people are and how they're equipped. And so, but the problem, like I've said, at this point, you're in middle school. You don't know who and who not to. You might have observed, right, that I've heard this person consistently running their mouth about somebody else. So maybe that's not the person that that I talk to. That person's chatty Cathy, literally. So I'm gonna leave her alone. And you think, okay, maybe I'll talk to this person, and then you get the same result. So that's not really your fault per se, because you're still figuring out who you are, let alone like watching how everybody's moving and whatnot. But the problem, like I said, becomes that, and I think Cheryl mentioned it, I think the word she used was compounding things. And so when you have finally reached the place where you're going to be honest about something that's going on with you, and then you tell someone and then they break your trust, it is such a feeling of violation. It is so hard to manage that, especially if you have to still interact with the person. So if they're a family member, somebody that you deal with in the community, at church, maybe it's somebody that you work with, it is so hard because you can't avoid them. You can't always avoid that person. And now you're like, okay, how do I manage getting through this? So, but again, in middle school, you have hormones. Your hormones are making you like loopy. for like literally, hormones bring you, it's like boop, 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 all over creation. One moment you could be cool, the next moment you're like, feel like you want to cry desperately, kind of like what menopause is. You're good for one second, the next minute you're hot and sweaty, the next one somebody's talking to you and you just wish they would stop talking. All the things. But how are you navigating this as you're trying to figure out who you are? You're trying to navigate, all measure of relationships. You're trying to navigate being in school, and it is really, really hard. So you don't share your emotions then either, because you've taken a bit of a risk, and now somebody may have hurt you, or you felt burned by somebody. So now you're retreating and reinforcing the wall. The same thing would be true of high school. Now in high school, you're having more experiences. Maybe you started dating. Maybe you're going out with groups of people. Maybe you're deciding that you like, you're attracted to boys or whatever. Well, I'm talking about me, right? You're attracted to them. And so now you're like, okay, you're in a different mind space, but now you're maybe noticing that you don't think they look at you, or they think you're pretty, or all the things. So again, you're trying to manage how you're feeling, but who do you talk to about those things? I know for me in high school, one of the things that I struggle with is I mean, and obviously, like looking back on it, there were some girls that were also not super thin, but a majority of the girls that I went to school with looked so thin all of the time. I'm like, what in the world is going on? I was in sports doing the thing. I was busy. It's, not like I was eating a house for every meal, so it wasn't that type of situation. But my shape and their shape were felt for me worlds apart. Now I look back at the pictures and I was like, what exactly was I seeing? Because we weren't as far apart then as I thought. But again, hindsight is 2020, and how you see yourself versus how other people see you can be so, so different. But I was not in the space to really share that, I was having issues with, my appearance and what I look like. And then you see people going out on dates, and that wasn't happening for me. And you see, people getting invited to the prom, and I struggled with that. Like, there was lots of feelings of, one, insecurity about my appearance, also recognizing that people didn't look like me in the town, and wondering like what that meant for me as far as like interacting with them. But also, like, the feeling of, for me, I internalized it as feelings of rejection. And I had already felt like that as a kid. I kind of had managed feelings of rejection. And I told you about the time that my best friend at the time decided not to include me in something that was a big deal for her, going away for the summer. And I feel like what I had done, even though I did react emotionally in that time, what I did was really stifle the fullness of how that broke me. And so when you have additional experiences of, feeling like people have broken you, and you just kind of keep pushing them down, compartmentalizing. And I was telling people, I feel like, one of the things that I've learned from my healing journey is I was really good at compartmentalizing, like expert level status over here. If you want a box, I got it. And I'll push something in it. Right? I will wholeheartedly push something in it. So that's one of the things that I recognized that I was doing. But obviously, again, in that moment when I'm in high school and I'm just trying to fit in, and not fit into a point where I'm like trying to be different, like, or do something that's crazy to fit in, but wanting not to like stick out like a sore thumb is probably more accurate. And I always felt like I did. So some of the decisions that I made were based on that, like, taking diet pills and not eating properly and all those types of things. That now looking back on it, I wish that I had been able to just tell somebody kind of what I was feeling in that time. But it was so difficult because I felt like I had tried to tell people before some of the things that I was managing, and just their reactions to it. Or the other thing is, I find that sometimes adults, and this is why I try to be mindful of myself doing this. I feel like sometimes adults are like, they have adult problems. Like, now I can talk about what adult problems are, right? But back then I didn't have, I wasn't holding on to adult problems or managing adult problems. The problem is I think sometimes adults dismiss what children are going through, kids are going through, young people are going through. Like, man, you ain't got real problems. You ain't got to pay no bills. You don't have to do X, Y, and Z. But that doesn't negate the fact that young people are going through problems. And when I look at the young people now and see what they're managing, I am so grateful that I was able to live my entire childhood all the way through being in college without social media at all. And it's very, very different. I never liked before someone got to know you. My family members already painted a picture in their person's head about you. That's not true. Yeah, that's 100% true. I can't tell you how many times that somebody has told me, "Wow, Stacy, so and so told me this about you," and it happened a lot in college, which was so interesting. So and so told me, this about you, and you're not like that at all. And I was like, wait a minute. What is it that these people told you about who I am? And people had made like designed these whole things about me that are not me at all. But because, for example, one of the things is people have called me snobby my whole life, and I'm okay with it. Like that's not even a conversation that I'm willing to have anymore. Okay, cool. I'm a snob. That's fine. If you think that of me, then you haven't taken an opportunity to get to know me, but I'm also okay with that. Right? Because the fact that you jump to that judgment means we would not be people. Like that's not an area that and it's fine for you to say, Stacy, you're different than I had pictured, because someone led me to believe that this is who you are. And now getting to know you myself, I know that's not who you are at all. That's happened to me. Literally I can so many times. And at first I used to be really heartbroken about it. Like, why do people think that of me? I'm not like that at all. I don't get why people would even go there. Now I'm like, okay, that's what you think. Fine. I'm snobby. I'm stuck up. Okay, cool. God bless you. It's not an area where I feel like I have to defend myself anymore, as opposed to back in the day. But it is very frustrating when you meet people for the first time and they're like, "Oh, I've heard of you," and you're like, "Oh, really? What is it you've heard?" "Oh, no, 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 all good things." I'm like, "Oh, really? Who did you hear it from?" Because as soon as you kind of question people or push back on people, then you'll find things like they'll say, "Oh, well, you know how that person is." I'm like, "Yeah, I do. That's why I'm asking you. What did they say?" I do. I 100% know about that person. So what did they have to say? But it's not something that I for two reasons, or two different things I will say about that. One, it's not something that I focus my energies on anymore. I might ask because I'm curious, but it's not like it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't injure me at all. But the other thing I will say is, because it's happened to me so often, when people will come to me and say something about somebody else, I'm like, I take it with a grain of salt. I'm like, okay, cool. That was your experience, and that's often I'm like, that was your experience with that person. Okay. But again, I don't get into the back and forth. I'm not like gonna have you like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. But and I'm glad this led into college, because in college was interesting for me, because in college I feel like it was the first time I was around other people that we're all trying to figure out who we are because you're still young. But the benefit of being away to college, and I know not everybody has this opportunity, but for me, being away at college means I had to reassess so much about myself, because you're trying to figure out, what are your non-negotiables, what are things you're willing to do, what are things you want to have exposure with or try, and what are the things that you're like, nah, that's not me, not doing it, not interested. That's the first time, if you have that opportunity, unless you went to like boarding school. I know some people have done that, but I did not. But for me, I was like, okay, these are things that I will do, these are things that I won't do, and I had those firmly established. But it's very interesting kind of navigating and watching other people walk that line and walk that journey. And even the interesting thing is, you can have all these established, I would never, like, I'm never gonna do blah 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 blah. We all say those things. I would never, I don't know, whatever your I would never moment is. And then sometimes based on peer pressure, sometimes based on curiosity, sometimes based on, depression or mental health crises or any number of things, right? There are so many things that can cause us to do things that we said we would never do. But what I will say is that in college, again, you have a bunch of people that are trying to figure themselves out. And for that reason, it was a time where so many of us were in vulnerable spaces because we're separated from our family. We're trying to assert ourselves as, young adults. And we're just trying to, navigate school and different place, different environment, all new people. I got to be able to share a lot of me in a way because I think of the mechanics of being separated from everything that was familiar. That was very helpful for me. Very, very helpful for me because I think for the first time I was able to share that. But I think the interesting thing for me, and I don't really know the why entirely behind this, is I didn't feel as vulnerable doing it with them. And it might have been because they were my peers and I could also sense their level of discomfort with themselves and trying to navigate who they were. But I didn't feel as intimidated in those settings. I felt very differently in settings that were not like isolated. So I think the isolation of that made me feel a little bit more comfortable. So it allowed for me to figure out, okay, this is who you are. And this is what you're going through. And it's okay in this space to share it. Now, was I still burned? 100%. 100%. But I think the biggest thing is when you're trying to express how you're feeling, you have to walk into it knowing that not everybody will hold in deepest regard your, I don't want to say privacy, but they won't hold in deepest regard your feelings surrounding it, your need for it to be, held dear and close to the vest as you're still navigating how you're feeling in the moment. So not everybody does that. And there are some people literally that I feel don't know how to keep their mouth shut. Like, they just don't. They have zero control over their mouth, just running nonstop. Just what it is. And I don't give apologies or excuses for that, but I'm just now aware because the older you get, you realize there are some people that could not hold water in a reinforced bucket. They would find a way for there to be a hole that slipped somewhere, right? They would figure out for water to be able to flow out. They just can't do it. And over time, I've been able to weed a lot of those people out. But again, you still, as you get older, you're still having to take risk. But you assess the risk. And that's something I couldn't do when I was a teenager that I'm now able to do. So when people are asking you how you're doing and you say, I'm fine, I'm okay, which for me, if you were to ask me maybe even last week and Stacey, how are you doing? My fine would have been, frankly, I'm numb and exhausted. So that's what it would have spelled out for me. Frankly, I'm numb and exhausted because that's all that I had. But the thing is, I also know that I'm blessed because people say, well, Stacey, aren't you the one who always talks about you need to be careful about, saying 100%. In that space, I'm still blessed. In that space, I still know God has his hand on me. But there's something to be said for being able to express in a moment, not stay there, right? Because I think that's different. And this is an area of growth for me. And I won't say all things that I'm like this about, right? I still think you have to be careful. But expressing in a moment how you are, and let me tell you why I say this. There was a woman that I worked with, fantastic woman, so sweet, Colombian woman. And one day, and I don't remember what was going on, but I remember I was having a rough week that week. And one day she went out to lunch and purchased, I had lunch after her. And we had been talking about what I was going to eat for lunch that day. And she came back on her lunch and had purchased lunch for me. And I was like, what in the world? Why would you do that? You don't need to do that. And she said, excuse me. And I'm getting up on the camera because that's what she did in my face. Excuse me. And I was like, yeah. She said, how dare you block my blessing? And I was like, what? What do you mean? God told me to do this for you. And you are going to try to block my blessing by saying, no, I can't. Yes, I can. And I did. And you will not block my blessing. And I literally, my mouth fell down because I was like, what do you say to that? Right? So I bring that up One, because it's just a story that warms me, because she was, is such a kind and warm person. But if you never tell somebody how you're doing, and again, you have to be mindful, you need to vet who you're talking to. But if you never tell people the truth of how, you're doing, they may not be able to fulfill purpose, because their purpose may be attached to being able to speak life into you in that moment, love on you in that moment that you need it, encourage you in that moment that you need it. But you were so busy. I'm blessed and highly favored of the Lord. And yes, you are blessed and you are highly favored. And today you're miserable. In this moment, you are miserable. In this moment, you feel alone. In this moment, you feel judged. In this moment, you feel that nobody cares about you. In the moment, you feel unseen. And it's important for the person that you're speaking to, the person that you have vetted, not everybody, but it's important for that person that you have vetted to be able to then do what God told them to do, which is speak life into you in that moment. And it's not to say that they cannot do it regardless, right? But there's a healing happening in you being able to trust that person. It's, for me, what I've been noticing, or what I think, is that me, for example, being able to share that with a select few, with a very select few, what that does is allows for me to reestablish that vulnerability is okay. It's okay to be vulnerable with the right person. It's with the assigned person, right? So for me, when I think back to that story where she said, "How dare you block my blessings?" I have to be mindful, because even me, when I correct people, I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm saying to them, not that you're not allowed to feel what you're feeling, but I'm going to speak. Yes, you are okay. I know it doesn't feel right in your body. I know that maybe your mind is all over the place this week, because maybe you're hurting. Maybe you feel alone, but you're not alone. And I think it's more of me through this healing journey. I've been made aware that sometimes when people are speaking their truth, and maybe it's uncomfortable for you to hear, because you don't want that person to be suffering. You don't want that person to say something that you feel like can be misinterpreted. Because let me talk, God is funny, right? So you got to be clear. When you're talking to him, be clear. Make sure your messaging is clear, full sentences. Don't give half sentences. Make sure he hears the whole sentiment. But I think that it's important for us to recognize that if somebody is coming to you, if you feel like you are coming to someone, that their assignment, their purpose may be attached to encouragement. Maybe that's the gift that God gave them, and you're giving them an opportunity to exercise the gift that God gave them, to walk in their purpose. So I'm not saying you need to, walk with your head held down, start singing "Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen." No, I'm not saying nobody knows but Jesus, um, because I get that. I get even feeling like that. And there's times where, the Bible says you have to encourage yourself 100%. You can't always wait for somebody else to do that for you. That is something that you have to be able to do for yourself, because there are going to be times when that person's busy and life is lifing for them and they don't have it to give. So you can't, it's not like a slot machine. You put the money in and pull down the lever and they spill out, encouragement, because sometimes, guess what? They don't have any water in the tank or any gas in the tank. There's nothing for them to give you. Nothing. So you have to be able to do that for yourself. But you also have to recognize that God aligned connections to people for a reason. And a lot of our connections are purpose driven. Some of them we're like, why are you assigning me to this person, Lord? Like, you funny, huh? I see what you're doing here. You're funny. Okay. And we may not always get it. But what I want you to understand is it's okay to, if you're fine and that's all you can say in that moment. I made a post, I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago now. And it said, if all you've done today is breathe, that's okay. You're not expected to be Sally Sunshine, hello, Harriet, every waking moment of the day. Some days you're going to have tough days. And it's okay to say, I'm having a tough day today. And maybe that person prays with you. Maybe that person sends you a note that just lifts your spirit. Maybe that person calls you on the phone and lets you cry or vent. Those are all things that we need to be able to do with the right person. So it's okay to say how you're feeling, because You have purpose, that person has purpose, and we don't want to block people's blessings. In short. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful for you all. We're rounding it down. I can't believe we're going to be on episode 30. It is amazing. I'm still writing, y'all. Pray for me. The last couple weeks have been hard because I try to write and then the words don't come as quickly as I would like for them to. But I know that God's in control, and so I give it to Him. And yeah, but we'll be doing a lot of writing this weekend. So I have to do that just because. Thank you, I appreciate it, Cheryl. Yeah, I have to do it because it's part of my purpose. So I have to get on it. No excuses. All right. With that, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I hope you have a great weekend. If you're going to a barbecue or a cookout, or if you're just getting some rest that you've needed to get, please do that. Love on yourself. Love on the people that are important to you. Hold them dear. Tell them you care. Apologize if you need to apologize. Man, look, just do the things. Do all the things. Whatever God puts on your heart to do that. That's the best way I can. Whatever He puts on your heart to do that. With that, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and extend to yourself and please to me a measure of grace. I will see you next Saturday, same time, same bat channel on Sipping Tea with Stacey T. Bye, everyone.